Welcome to the Relaxed Dog Podcast, the podcast where the dogs are the stars of the show. Welcome to episode 86 of the Relaxed Dog Podcast, sponsored by therelaxeddog.com. Thank you very much for finding this show. I am your host, Robert Ober, and I hope that you and your dog are well. Welcome back to our regular listeners, and another welcome if this is your first time. My guest this week is Steve Kaufman, and he's going to be telling us all about young Luke, his Aussie Shepherd. But first, in some doggy news, late one evening on a Monday in Lebanon in the USA, it's near the New Hampshire-Vermont border, there were reports of a dog running up and down the road. So when the local police responded, they found a young German Shepherd by the name of Tinsley. Tinsley was proving a little evasive when they were trying to catch him. He kept running slightly back up the road and waiting for them. Police officers were a little bit sort of like, okay, they kept pursuing. It wasn't too far up the road. They found some damaged guardrail and a wrecked motor vehicle. The two occupants of that vehicle had been ejected, and Tinsley actually belonged to them. The attending paramedics actually credited the swift recovery of the two gentlemen to Tinsley's ability to alert authorities to the crash site. Well done, Tinsley. And over in Hungary, in the Eltrosh Lorand University, researchers trained 18 dogs to lie motionless in a brain scanning machine where they were played some excerpts of The Little Prince in Spanish and Hungarian, along with some mix-ups of the two of them. What the researchers found was that the dog's brains could distinguish between speech and non-speech, and also they distinguished between Spanish and Hungarian. Some very interesting results, and that actually got me thinking about all the rescue dogs that go from one country to another and what must be going through their heads. And if you're also wondering why not grab a friend, re-listen to the first part of the podcast. In fact, listen to the whole podcast with them, and then do some further research with Google. And now, here's this week's interview. Welcome to the Relaxed Dog Podcast. I am here today with Steve Kaufman. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Yeah, pleasure to have you on.
Thanks for having me.
Whereabouts in the world are you?
I am in Phoenix, Arizona, or right outside of Phoenix.
Oh, nice. And how's the weather there today?
We're getting up to about 81, I think. So it's spring has sprung.
Spring has sprung, and as we record, I think you're going into Super Bowl weekend, isn't it?
We are, yes. Tomorrow evening.
Always a big fun event.
Yeah, it's going to be crazy around here. Yeah, the Rams are. So it's close by where the Super Bowl is being hosted. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So who are we going to be talking about today?
Well, I think today we'll talk about Luke. Luke is a 18-month-old Australian Sheperd that I just adopted about 3 weeks ago.
He's going to be, very sort of young and a more recent sort of story. So as per usual, I'm going to ask you to take us back, in this case only a short period of time, and talk to us about the hows and the whys that you two connected.
Well, so Luke is a so I guess a product of years of different styles and types of dogs that I've had. And most recently lost a 12-year-old golden retriever that I had. And then during the pandemic, he was getting very ill, and waited probably 8-9 months before Luke came into my life. So I started looking around and always knew I wanted a hiking dog, a dog that really loves a lot of exercise. I'm in Arizona in the United States, and it's warm all the time. So the mountains are right by the house. And so I hike quite a bit. I have a small dog as well at home, a little small 8-year-old dog. He's not a big hiker. So that's where I started looking for Luke. I was looking for something that really had energy and wanted to learn and sort of fit my personality and my lifestyle as well. So looked at a lot of shelters, rescues. Within the work that I do, I have a national view of animal shelters. So I was able to really do a national search and look. I was willing to go really almost anywhere to find the right dog. And ended up being local, ended up a local animal shelter you always find love in your backyard, right? So I went over, and he was actually a little growly, a little resource guarding. He had been there for about 2 months, did the head down, back up, was real cautious. But total personality change when we took him out of the kennel and brought him, on a leash. He did well, brought him into an off leash area. And that's when we hooked up. That's when we really knew we were each other's pet. And it seemed like he was listening to me right when I got him. Like he understood. His name was different, and I had changed it to Luke, and it felt like he knew that was his name.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
Yeah.
So is there any sort of like a reasoning or story behind choosing Luke as the name?
A little bit. I am somewhat of a Star Wars fan. And I like the cleverness of being able to hike and tell everybody that I am his father. We sort of chuckle about that. But his name in the shelter had an L. It started with an L. And other dogs I've known that I've adopted, I try to stick with at least the sound that's similar. So Luke was sort of born out of the name Lux that he was being called there. And there's all kinds of other references. You know how it is with dogs. You start to come up with lots of different creative reasons for the name. I could go on about, well, it might be Dukes of Hazzard, or maybe it's this Luke, or maybe it's that Luke. He's 90210 Luke Perry. I don't know. So
then there'll be the derivatives that'll come from that. It's like, what's your dog's name? And it's like, oh, he's got about 20 names. Depending on the mood at the time and what he's done.
Right. Yeah. Like I'm Steve, but my mother would call me Steven. So when Luke and I aren't agreeing, I'll call him George Lucas is his full name. So.
So how was the initial introduction into your home?
It was interesting. So like I said, I have an 8-year-old, I want to call him a Yorkie, Dachshund, maybe Lhasa mix. And he's been around since he was very young, and he was around Bogey, who we had for 12 years. So this was going to be his new best friend as well. Took about 3 days. The first day, it was a little growly, and, they sort of stayed separate. By the second day, they were used to each other and not quite playing, but, didn't mind each other. Mm-hmm. And then by day 3, they were sharing a water bowl. Like, I was shocked. I looked on, they were both drinking at the same time out of the water bowl. So it took about 3 days, but he's young. He's like a teenager, 18 months. He's just happy and loves everybody he meets, and he's super friendly. And I'm currently dog sitting for a little 4-year-old Dachshund. And so he immediately bonded with that dog as well. He's very open to people and animals. So it was an interesting acclimation. Didn't know whether I was going to let him on the couch or not, on the bed or not. And once we gave that permission once, it was all over. He's on the bed every night now. And he's on the couch, and he likes to be right in your lap. He's a people dog, that's for sure.
I was just going to ask, is it like free ranging or crate, and where does he sleep? And with the older dogs, same sort of conditions?
Yeah, free roaming. I took Luke to a dog park about a week ago. He made friends with everybody there and loved it. The dog parks here, or at least the one I went to, was probably 2 acres. And so there's a lot of room to run. He's a big fetch player. He's a big ball rope player. And so he was stealing balls from everybody. There's a lot of other dogs there and a lot of other owners and guardians, and they were throwing the ball, and he would just go after anything in the air. So he made a lot of friends that day.
Oh, no, nice.
Yeah.
Have you got a yard or?
I do. I have a typical Arizona desert yard. Not a blade of grass anywhere to be seen. It's rock. So I take him out on a lot of walks, and I get him out to some other areas.
Mm-hmm.
We have a pool. Most people in Arizona do, because the summer here is very, very hot. So I'm looking forward to seeing if he swims. It's a little cold right now. Even though it's 81, the water is still 60. So about April or May, we'll probably be able to get in, and that'll be exciting to see. Aussie Shepherds are normally pretty good in the water. Goldens, Aussies, so we'll see. I'm excited to see if he swims.
Has he had much experience with the water outside?
Well, they've been around the pool. I think he stuck his nose in it to take a sip once. Wrestling around with other dogs. Unfortunately, the smallest dog got bumped in the pool once. So, they're all out there playing, and he fell in just like a wet rat, and we pulled him out, and he was all embarrassed because it's pretty cold right now. Mm-hmm. But yeah, they do well around water and not falling in. And, it's an in-ground pool. So there's a ledge, we call it a beach entry. So it's really shallow on one side. So he's able to walk in and just stay up to his ankles or his knees and not have to be all the way in the pool, yet still be wet. So
nice to cool the paws off.
Exactly. Yes. Because those rocks can get hot. I feel so bad. I want to put grass in, but, I'm also conscious of the environment. And here in Arizona, we don't have a lot of water. And, grass is not natural to the desert. So I'd like to, xeriscape the yard, keep it really natural. We have some cactus. We have Palo Verde. We have aloe and what else is there? There's, regular desert plants, but nothing really soft. Mm-hmm. So I feel bad. I might put some turf down or something for him this year.
I guess they'll never develop that, digging holes in the yard scenario.
Right. Yeah. When I moved to Arizona, there's no basements here. You can't dig very deep. It's just rock.
Just sort of staying with what about grooming? Any sort of how's he go with bath time and do you do that regularly or?
Just once so far. I can't wait actually to see how his coat comes out. He's been in a shelter for 2 months. They were on a consistent diet, which I recognize is really important to coat and to eyes. And so we've been switching him over slowly to his new food. And his coat is starting to get shinier and his chest is filling out a little bit. So I'm excited to see what his full blown, what he's supposed to look like. Take him to a professional groomer and have him get an Aussie cut. I've worked in shelters for about 25 years and, we do have some groomers in shelters, but most of the time I say we just give them haircuts. Mm-hmm. They're not really being groomed. They're just sort of getting a haircut or sometimes all of it cut off because it's matted or something. So I'm afraid to take a blade to him myself. So I'm going to take him to someone professional.
Excellent. And I'm guessing, again, with the environment, there's a lot less nail trimming and things like that you have to worry about.
Yeah, he grinds them down a little bit on the concrete. But, so far they're still cut pretty short and he doesn't seem to have any problem. He sort of prances. I've never seen a dog that sort of walks like those horses do, just sort of the equestrian style. So he's got a neat gait.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Did you know much of the history before he went into the shelter?
Well, they think he was a door dasher. He door dashed at the shelter a few times. That's normally one way they can show up at shelters is just wandering stray. So in this case, because they think he was a purebred and he's just a gorgeous dog, they hung signs. They really tried all over the neighborhood where he was found to find an owner. This didn't look like he was on the street long. He wasn't emaciated. His coat wasn't, matted or anything. So somebody took care of him, of course, for some time. And, over 2 months, that's enough time that I guess that either they didn't look for him or they didn't look at the right place or decided maybe against going back to get him. So I was lucky, I think. I went in that day. We found him online first, actually did a digital search with Pet Finder and Adopt a Pet. And he was there, put in the application and, it started from there.
Yeah, just saying, when you're saying the prancing, I mean, it's a good chance it's a natural thing, but if someone's like initially sort of like done some training to do that style of like heel work or something like that for like performance or sports dog stuff.
Totally agree. Yeah, it could be, he seemed to recognize hand signals. And I just started with a trainer. Actually, yesterday was my first hour with her. And, doing some really basic stuff, he picked up on it in like 2 seconds. So it looked like somebody had been working with him before. And, I never thought of the show angle, but with that gait, I wonder if maybe he was a show dog, because he looks as close to pure as I can tell, without ever seeing papers. You never know. But I wonder if he was possibly somebody who was, you would think though, if he was a show dog, they would have looked at every possible shelter or rescue.
You'd think so.
Yeah. Interesting. No, it's that's sort of what you get with the shelter sometimes is you don't get to know all the history of the background.
No, that's always a big challenge.
Yeah.
So what would a typical walk sort of like be for you guys?
So we go out every day, probably 5 days a week, most of the time, a few times 4 days a week, to the Phoenix Mountain Preserve. So that's an area that's, God, I can't even think how many square miles it is. It's a huge area that we walk a 3.5 sometimes, and then a 5 mile loop. And we'll normally gain about 600 to 800 feet in elevation. So we'll walk up to a peak, and then we walk around the peak. So you get a view from the north, south, east, and west, and then we walk down.
Nice.
So we get some elevation, we get some single track. So he's walking next to me, and then he has to get in front of me, because on the single track, there's a mountain on one side and then it falls down on the other. So you got to stay in front of each other. And so the trainer I'm working with has given me some good commands to use to get him to stay on the trail. And there's cactus everywhere. So, a couple times he's gone off trail, he's gotten some between his paws, and he yelps and leaps, and I have to get down and pull him out. So he's learning quickly to stay on the trail.
So, on or off leash?
On leash all the time so far. My goal is to get him to an off leash verbal command. I don't need a service dog, or I don't need an agility dog, but I would love to be able to have him squirrel proof, like if something ran by that he wouldn't just take off. So that's why I got a trainer too. I've had, 5 dogs over the course of my life, for the full course of their life, and never had a trainer, but just sort of self-trained. And I work with animals. So I kind of, I had dogs with manners, but never really dogs that were trained. And so I wanted to, that's another reason I was so attracted to Luke when I saw him, that just his eyes and his learning ability with the way he was looking, he just looked like he was wanting to learn. So, yeah.
Excellent. Have you ever come across any sort of like other species and things like that on the trail?
Oh, yes. So I've got quite a few videos. I keep my phone handy. Lots of coyotes that are out there, lizards everywhere in the summer. Rattlesnakes are 6 or 7 months of the year. So there is actually rattlesnake training that you can do here in Arizona for your dog to sort of make them averse to rattlesnakes. I was just at Joshua Tree National Park that's in California, and there's bighorn sheep out there. So yeah, the hikes we really see mostly lizards and rabbits, big tall eared rabbits. He still charges a little bit. He wants to tug, but he's got a really short response. So as soon as I say leave it, he turns around and comes right back. Excellent. So I think getting him to a point where he's squirrel proof is going to be isn't going to be too hard, but I just got to keep up with his training. Like I used to tell everybody when they adopt that how important training was, and now I have to walk the walk.
You mentioned briefly before, so like favorite games that he likes to play?
Yeah, so he's definitely big into fetch. So different style of balls that we play with, and Kongs. I love that, the way that those bounce. I'm not big into rope toys. I don't like tug of war. I didn't want to get into that with him. He did come with some rope toys and some other stringy toys. So we played with those for a couple of days, but I've tried to stick with balls and retrievable things. And really, I'm trying to come up, now that I've had a trainer help me, the games I think are changing from what's fun for me to what's fun for him, changing my mentality to turn the game into a training technique. So every time I'm playing with him, he's actually learning something, or we're learning something about each other. So we've got some hide the treat under your foot type games. These are not very labor intensive. These are very slow games, but he's learning, and he's learning to keep his eye on me, and learning to leave treats alone on the floor. So those are the types of games we're playing right now.
Oh, nice. Any sort of like scent orientated stuff? Like, I know you said hide the treat under your foot, but do you do like hide the food somewhere in the house and that sort of things, or?
Yeah, nothing that advanced yet. I am going to move from some dried liver treats that I've been using to something a little more stinky. The stinkier and the slimier, the more of a prize it is. And so when I want to get to some higher level of training, I got to have a really good prize. So haven't done anything hiding around the house yet, but hope to get there.
Great. So now the focus was for to match a dog with your sort of like outdoor sort of ambitions and things. How far are you sort of like going with that? Are you thinking of something like canicross or anything like that, or just purely for the enjoyment of hiking and things like that?
Yeah, I'm a big camper too, and I have a little travel trailer that I tow behind a truck. And so, he'll be coming with me. My goal is pretty much every time I pick up my keys that he comes with me wherever I go.
Excellent.
And so, and that's how Bogey was, my old dog. And that's why, it's kind of funny now because most of the cars don't have keys. It's just a little, fob. Yeah. So you can't rattle the keys. The dog doesn't come running when there's nothing to rattle anymore. So I got to come up with something like the leash or whatever. But I want to take him, like I said, camp a lot up to the Grand Canyon and out to California and the coast. And I'm originally from the Midwest United States, from Missouri. So of course, want to bring him back there. Love to have him see the beach and the coasts on the East Coast. But I'm not going to get into any sort of agility or trials or anything, competitions or anything with him, really. Purely a companion. Don't really even want to make him a working dog by any real definition, just more obedient than manners. That's still always my goal.
Yeah, no, nice. And it's just that focusing on where you're going to use their intelligence.
Yeah. One of my staff that I work with, she has a border collie mix that is a search and rescue dog. So, she told me upon hire even that, at any time when a disaster happens, earthquakes or fires, buildings collapsing, this dog is on a registry that they would call and say, we need you to come and use your search and rescue dog, which is wonderful. And it's an amazing, just, to your point, it's a companion and it's a wonderful companion, but it also has this job that is a life-saving or potentially life-saving job. And so, I look at Luke, like he does have a lot of potential to do something. I don't know what it is. And actually it's all owner based too. What do we want to do with them?
Yeah. And I think it's, for a lot of people, there's a bit more of a transition now that a lot of people understand more about dogs, and rather than a person saying, I want to do this and you're my dog and you're going to do what I want you to do, but letting the dogs try multiple things and seeing what they really want to do and say, okay, I guess that's what we're going to do. Right.
Yeah, I think, training has gotten so much better from, purely being punitive before and, electric shock and pinch collars, and it's moved to positive reinforcement. And, we've just really recognized the human animal bond is so strong. I mean, and again, coming from animal shelters, you see they're so resilient. An animal that has an abusive past can still be a wonderful pet. Greyhounds have had some horrible abuse in their lives, and they make amazing pets when they're retired racers. Just the resiliency of the spirit of the dog is something that amazing.
Nothing at all like a human canine bond. It's just, two species, and it's just, you think, wow. And there's so much that comes off it and so much that we get from that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's and I've seen, in the business that I'm in now, I've seen a lot of levels of ownership. So everywhere from people experiencing homelessness owning pets to, people breeding pets to people in with multiple pet households. The bond's the same. Doesn't matter race, religion, creed, sexual orientation. Dog doesn't care. It's just and actually people experiencing homelessness have a bond that's very tight with their pet because they're with their pet for 24 hours a day. And it's just interesting watching that how much they put into your life, and how much they do add. And then even if you're not a certified service animal, so many pets that I've seen, for all intents and purposes, are providing a service. They are very, very valuable service, whether it's mental or physical.
Yep.
and they don't need a piece of paper to do that for you.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. Actually, just touching on health, how has Luke's health been? Has there been any incidents or vet visits?
Not yet. I mean, we had our first vet visit, initial inoculations and vaccinations, and my wife's a veterinary technician in her past, and I have that's handy, and she works for a dog food company now, which is also very handy. And with my line of work, we can watch the health pretty quickly, and so far he's been completely healthy. He hasn't thrown up. He's chewed a few things. He's gotten into a few things. He's still a kid, so you can lay as much stuff on the floor as you want, and he still wants the pillow. So I'm expecting a few health issues probably down the road, and I think they'd probably be more like digestive. I don't expect any skin or, I'm hoping there's nothing hereditary, without knowing his lineage. I don't know if there's a history of anything. But, ideally, if they came from a good breeder, then those are the health checks that they would have checked, before they bred.
Yeah, mentioning a few of those things, I usually ask all my guests to complete the sentence, I can't believe my dog ate.
Yeah, I've been, what hell has he eaten? So his bed, of course, right off the bat, he chewed his bed up the first time I was gone for more than an hour. I think the oddest thing so far is a disposable razor, blade.
Wow.
Yeah, and that scared the heck out of me. I saw it. He didn't have it for more than just a few seconds because I saw it come from the other room and caught it real quick. But it woke me up to, it doesn't matter what it is, he will put it in his mouth. So really have to watch, when you've got a toddler in the house like this, what you lay on the ground and, what they see versus what we see. Mm-hmm. And that's another reason why I'm really particular about the toys I want to give them, because, some stuff looks very much like a shoe or like something that I own. I don't want that as a toy.
What are his favorite toys?
It's the ball so far. He's a big runner and retriever. Yeah, he brings it back and wants to play endlessly. Whereas, like my other small dog, he'll go get it once and he's done. So Luke's big into interaction. I think, and I've never thought of it that way, but that really is his difference to other dogs I've had. He's very interactive. So it's not as much independence. He wants to be there and doing things.
Nice.
Yeah.
With the mention when he first got here, and that's a little bit of the separation anxiety, and was there much of that he did have initially? And then,
yeah, he, I didn't know whether I was going to crate him. I have a crate for my other dogs, and I brought it in and set it up, and introduced him real nice to it. And the goal was the first night or two to crate him, and then see what happens. He hasn't had an accident in the house at all since I've gotten him. So he's obviously already been house trained. And so the crate went down on day 2 because we didn't really need that. He's just very well mannered in that aspect. Yeah.
So you got a favorite room or place in the house?
I think the bed now. I think they might have not been allowed on a bed before, but he'll come full speed from another room and jump on the bed. And every time I come back in this room, my bedroom is just a complete torn up mess. But he's been sticking pretty tight. Myself and my wife both work from home pretty often. So he stays by me when I'm here. And then when I leave, he pretty much curls up in that room in the other office. So no real one favorite room, but wherever humans are, again, like I was saying before, he's just so tied. That bond is really tight with him. And it took like 2 days. I mean, there was, I could tell he was not clinical separation anxiety, but the fact that I was gone for a couple hours, even after the second day, made him more antsy, and he paced and he'd shoot a little more. And so his favorite place is wherever we are.
Excellent. Did he ever chew something like really bad that he shouldn't have chewed initially?
Yeah, nothing so far. I mean, now after the bed disaster on day 1, where it was just blown up all over the room, was a complete mess. We just learned what to keep on the floor and what not to keep on the floor. So I'm hoping, I'm guessing they thought he was about 11 or 12 months. I think about 18 or so. So, they're puppies till they're 2 years old. So I fully expect to not keep anything valuable lower than 2 feet. I will. keep buying, I keep trying to find what he picks up, what he's choosing. There's toys everywhere, and they sent us home with just a mass amount. But I think I'm going to stick with the hard rubber and the Kongs and the treat-oriented, puzzle-oriented toys, so that they're more what we used to call it in the shelter world is kennel enrichment. I want him to be able to be occupied so he's not bored and chewing the carpet or chewing a pillow.
Yep. Yeah, biological fulfillment and enrichment. It's something that a lot of people sort of, I think, do overlook a little bit. And if they took a little bit of time to understand a little bit more about what the dog wants to do or what's hidden in their DNA, then there'd be a lot less of what people perceive to be problems at home with the dog.
Yep, 100% agree. I think that destructive dogs are really not destructive. They're bored dogs. And so, the destruction is just the human version of what happened. Yeah. They don't see anything destructive. They didn't feel like this doll used to be in one piece and now it's in a lot of pieces, So yeah, it's you really change your mindset and get into their head and what they see things as. And then your relationship is much tighter once you've gotten to that level.
So traveling in the car, where does he sit?
Well, he was in back. I have a pickup truck. It's a 4-door. So I put him in back when I take him for hikes. Did not last long. He jumps to the front now pretty quickly. He's not really a head out the door, driving down the road. I do crack the window. I'm a little nervous still of him jumping out, but he does. It's funny because the other dogs I've owned will always stick their head out the window and they like the smells and the tongue, getting the air across the tongue and everything. He lays down in the front seat, puts his head on the armrest in the middle, just stares at me, he just lays down. So I'm driving with one hand and, petting his face with the other, but he really doesn't jump around much or anything. Gets in the front seat. He lays there, stares at me when we're driving. And
Have you done any longer trips with him?
Nothing over a couple hours yet. So I'm excited, as the spring and summer wear on and we start having more camping trips and getting them out. I can see doing 8-9 hour trips with them, a couple stops on the road and for some potty breaks and stuff. But he travels well, and I think he'll do well on those long 8 hour, 9 hours. He'll probably just curl up and sit right by us.
And that's probably a little bit early to tell, but do you think he has a preference towards the warmer or cooler weather?
Well, yeah, I'm guessing he's from here or from the area. So I'm sure his whole life has been in the desert. So it'll be interesting. I do have a trip up to Colorado planned. Durango, Colorado it's all snow right now. They got like 20 inches recently or something. So really excited to see what he does when he sees that, because I've had quite a few dogs and I've got the experience to watch them see snow for the first time. And each one of them is kind of different depending on the breed and depending on like where they sort of grew up. So he's got so much personality. It'll be interesting to see when he gets out of the car and there's snow on the ground. It's cold on his paws instead of rocks or hot.
Yeah, that should be very, very interesting to watch.
Yeah. He's got a big coat and, he's a kind of a thicker, he's just shorter, but he's already 55 pounds. So if he's anything like the Goldens and some of the other Sheperd breeds, I think he's going to love it. I think he'll, just roll around and have a great time.
Off the top of your head, one of the more prouder moments that you've had in the short time?
His training. It's amazing, when you actually get a good trainer and how quickly they pick up on what they're learning. And then when you do it right and you see the dog respond, it's sort of like, hitting that golf ball in, once you do it once, you're like, oh, I can do this all the time. And then, you miss 9 more times. But it's, and that's how it is with dogs, you do it once and he obeys and then everything is perfect. And then 8 more times, he never sits. And so you keep trying and trying. But so to answer your question, that moment is the other day when I was really doing some of those games where we, we're hiding the treats and he learned really quickly. It was like just amazing to watch. A treat that a high value, stinky treat that he really wanted about 2 feet away, off leash, and didn't move, until he was given the command to go. And that took like 15 minutes to get to that point. A couple of repeat trials, a couple, here's what I want you to do. And then he did it. And I was like, oh my gosh. That was my big proud moment so far.
Mm-hmm. I was going to ask what sort of training style and reward-based system that they're using, but so it sounds like you're getting like treat rewards.
Yeah, positive reinforcement. I do have a martingale collar on, so it's not a prong collar by any means, but it's a slip collar that I'm sure you're familiar with. And um, so he doesn't pull when he walks. He walks with a full U leash, so he's got a good hanging U there. And the training has all been very positive. Most of it is eye contact. Not direct stare contest, of course, but it was just more making sure the dog's always looking and checking what you want him to do. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting. I want him to have his own personality, and I want him to be bouncy and fun and goofy and a fun dog. So I don't want him to be a robot, but I do love the fact that, he is checking on me and just constantly, like, when I do get to an off-leash scenario in the mountains, I don't want him to be 200 yards in front of me. I need him to be, 20 yards in front of me. So I want him to be trained enough to look back and care about where I am, but carefree enough to still be a dog.
Yeah, no, it's a good balance. And it is nice when you get that regular, they're checking in with you rather than it's just like I'm free, run.
Yeah, there's a dog beach I can't wait to take him to that I visited when I was in LA last summer. And there must have been 200 dogs just running up and down the beach. And then the water dogs were running in and chasing the balls. And then the little dogs were running along the beach and barking at them all. And there was like just layers of minor aggression, nothing major, of course, everybody just yelling and barking and sniffing each other. So I'm looking forward to taking him there.
Mm-hmm. Does he have any local, like, doggy friends?
Well, he does now. So, we dog sit for quite a few other people. Within my role and some friends' roles, we all travel quite a bit and we all have pets. So we pass them around and watch them for each other. And so far, everyone he's met, he likes, even his own house, which I like because, when I first introduced him, and this was a question you had asked earlier, and I didn't actually hit this point, but, I had said before we got any dog, what I loved about our previous one was when we brought him home and there's a much smaller dog, he sort of went to his back and immediate to the submission pose. And then he bowed down, head down, butt up, and was playful. And I thought, if we bring a dog home and that's not the first thing that happens, if it becomes a little sniff off or some growlies or something, I thought it'd be much harder. And it was great when Luke came in and he did exactly that. He just went right to his back. He let Herbie, our small dog, jump around and sort of get the sniffs, figure him out. And I think he's still a young enough mentality that everything's a game to him. Mm-hmm. So, he's very playful. And, when you got a little 8-pound dog being aggressive to you, I think he still thinks it's a joke, because he's 55 pounds. So he's like, I don't tell if you're serious or not. So you're growling at me, but I'm still in a play mode. And so, yeah, he's met, and Parker is the dog I'm watching right now, and he's having a blast with him. It's another, maybe 12, 15 pounder. And he lunges and snaps and, tries to keep Luke in line. And Luke just thinks the whole thing's a game.
What lessons do you think Herbie has sort of like passed on or shown Luke?
Well, the ways of the house, of course, I think right off the bat, they sort of travel around room to room. Here's where the water is. Here's how we get outside. Every dog's got its little trick, to get out. And some people use a bell, like on a door, or there's a paw to scratch or something. My dogs are traditionally, and I've never trained this, they just do it, is like one short yip, just to let they're by the door. And it didn't take Herbie long to show Luke. And you could almost watch it, you could see how it was unfolding. That this is where you go out. And when you want to go, and here's where the food is, 5:00. He runs to the food room where they get fed in the laundry room. So now Luke does that. Day one, I fed them separately. And by the second day, they were both eating at the same time, which I was amazed by, because they're feeding different food. And I think Luke's is stinkier and more, attractive, and they keep their balance, eat their own food. Mm-hmm. So I'd like to say Herbie is old and wise, but I'll just say he's old. He's a little dog and he has stuck in his ways, and we have accepted those ways. So I don't think he's going to teach him anything bad.
I was just going to ask.
My training.
Has it been something that he's passed on to think, oh no, don't tell him, don't show him how to do that?
Yeah, the trash cans and the things that he used to chew on. Herbie's good at hiding things under beds that you might forget about for 2 or 3 weeks, and then you're cleaning up and you're like, oh, that's where that went. Yeah. So I hope he doesn't teach Luke that, because Luke fetches everything. And again, like I said, I don't want like shoe style toys, because the next thing you know, all my shoes will be under the bed, or they'll be hidden somewhere in the backyard or something like that. So, yeah. The happiest, or the time where he's
you've just gone into like fits of uncontrollable laughter. Has there been one of those?
Oh, a couple. Yeah. He is, even from day one, super affectionate. So he's right in your face, too much so. I mean, it's one of the traits I'm trying to train down. So I got muzzle punched. This is a podcast. You can't see it, but I have a fat lip because he came up so fast. And you know what a muzzle punch is? They sort of take their muzzle and nail you. And I was bleeding, got a fat lip and everything. But I mean, he can't be mad. He was trying to kiss me. It's not coming at me with teeth. He was, and so to your point of the laughing moments, like when I get up the first day, so no crate, we let him sleep on the ground on his bed. And then as soon as we start waking up and moving around, he jumps on the bed. And so, your eyes aren't open yet. And I wear glasses and hadn't put my glasses on. Still dark in the room. And he just leaned down right in my face and just a giant sneeze. Just, like, 3 inches from my face. And I'm like, morning, Luke. Like day 2. This is how I'm waking up. I'm like, we can't do this every day, Luke. We're going to come up with a different one. But he gets in and he just rubs his face so close to you. And he's trying to lick so much that he did it to me, and I can't stop laughing because it's early and he's getting so close. And then he did it to both my kids, so it was fun to watch. Where I could hear from the other room that my son sleeps really late, and so if I open the door, Luke comes right in and gets right on top of you, and he's all in your face, and you just can't help but start laughing because it's just super fun and cute.
How was the initial interaction with the kids? I don't know how old your children are.
Sure. They're teenagers, and so fine. They've been dog kids their whole life, and they have parents who both work in the industry. So, they know how to approach dogs really well, and they went up to the shelter. Of course, as a family, we wanted to all meet them before we made a family decision to bring them home, and so we went into a leash-free area, and I still kept them on leash, and I let my son and my daughter each take turns walking them and sort of interacting. Had a whole pockets full of treats. And he bonded to everybody really quick. So I have no fear of, either my son or my daughter taking him out for a walk on their own. I think he's totally controllable. I've seen some large dogs that, are uncontrollable. They're not uncontrollable, but you definitely want to have the right owner behind that dog when you're out in a public area. And so, whenever I see kids walking dogs, it always makes me think, all right, can they control that animal on its worst moment? If something were to happen. And I feel that with Luke. My youngest is 13 and the other 17. So they're big enough to hold on to him, but I don't have any fear of him doing something out of control. He's already protective of them. He's bonded so quickly.
Nice.
Yeah.
Has there been any sort of like those anxious or cautious moments, even just doing a local walk around the neighborhood?
No, I had hardly ever heard him bark except for the time in the kennel where he was barking at me because he had his resource guarding. I got it. He was in this tiny little 5x10 kennel. The only other time I've heard him bark is ironically when the trainer came over, because we were wearing masks, of course, at the time. So she had her mask on. And that's a little intimidating, I think, for dogs, and knocked really, loudly on the door, and I opened the door up and he starts barking, and it sort of shocked me because I hadn't really heard him bark much. He's a pretty quiet dog. And we both kind of laughed because we're like, well, this is your trainer. So, out of all the people to bark at and to cause anxiety, you better get used to her. So she took her mask off. And as soon as she came in, of course, he, within 2 sniffs, he had jumped on her like he jumps on people. And then she was also full of stinky treats to give him. So they made friends really quickly. But yeah, that's the only angst I've seen out of him. Even when we were hiking and saw a coyote, he saw it, he perked up and it ran by. Didn't bark at it, didn't try to chase or anything, which thank God he didn't. Mm-hmm. And even the little lizards and stuff when we hike, he doesn't seem to be bothered or get any anxiety from that. I think his worst is just separation. Again, not the sort of clinical self-mutilating, but just he so likes to be with you that he's just bored. He's looking for you to give him a job all the time. And so if he's by himself, if you didn't leave him a puzzle, he's going to find your shoe.
So touch back with the interactions with the coyotes were around, because quite often they can be the aggressors. And I've heard different accounts of people with small dogs really having problems.
Yeah, there's problems with that. And out here, the big raptors too, some of the big birds will come and take little dogs away. So for the coyotes, the one we saw with him was just a single, and it ran by probably 50 yards ahead. So it was really just more of a head perk. When I've walked by myself, I've seen 3 together in a pack. And that goes to your point. I think that's when I get a little more nervous when three of them feel like they've got some guts. One of them, by himself, isn't going to cause any harm. So I'm a little more cautious when I'm by myself, but there's time of day around here as well. And you sort of have to be alert all the time. I know some people carry like air horns and things like that to scare off wildlife. I haven't done any of that yet, but we'll see what happens. Hopefully we don't get, within a couple meters. That's a little too close.
No, let's hope not.
Yeah.
Is anything else coming to mind as far as adventures or interesting incidents that you can think of that you've shared?
Yeah. I nothing that, he's just been a part of my life there's been 4 days, I think, that we were separated since I've gotten him, because I was out of town and he stayed at home. So all those experiences are coming, I think, all the fun stuff still ahead. And as the training progresses, it's amazing, like I said earlier, to watch how quickly they learn. And then I'm excited to see that in real life, out in the environment. He goes to soccer games with me, and there's tons of kids running around everywhere. So not chasing the ball and learning to just sit there and watch the game with me. And, all those are, I think, the adventures coming and camping. And, once you start getting out in the wilderness here in Utah and California, the wildlife gets larger and stronger. So you have to start getting a little more cautious at night if there's bears around or if there's big cats around. So we'll see. I'm sure if we talk again in a couple of years, I'm sure I'll have a lot more stories.
No doubt at all. And look, sometimes those moments, like you just mentioned, just sitting and watching a soccer game, we sort of like often overlook or discount that, but they can be so special. And
yeah, I agree. And I think, it's really fun too, as they bond and as they become more trained, that you're not sitting there sort of wrangling or trying to, keep them calm. Once they mature and again, when they're trained better, they really can just go everywhere with you. I'm glad that we're getting a lot more dog friendly places throughout the States. There's some cities that are amazingly dog friendly. Every restaurant, parks are all dog accessible. And I think it's just getting more popular. I think Western Europe, we're seeing a lot of that as well. Not sure there how dog friendly you are, or if you've got dog friendly restaurants or anything.
I think sadly, we do, but we're a little bit behind, I think, in my opinion anyway, from the States and Europe as how they've really accepted dogs in society and basically just said a lot of places are wherever you go, your dog's welcome to go with you,
Yeah. Well, I think what we're seeing and why that's taking root is there's more and more science now behind human animal bond. So all the things that you and I have probably known anecdotally our whole life are now having some backing that, they can lower blood pressure and they can cause weight loss because they want you to take them for a walk. And, you lose weight when you're out exercising, and so many of the mental and physical benefits. And now that we're getting some white papers and some data, peer reviewed data, it's got a lot more science, and that allows you to go to city councils and governments and say, yeah, no, this should be dog friendly because, dogs are social capital. Basically, dogs are the icebreaker. A dog park is a great place where you have, a PhD talking to a high school dropout because they both own a Cocker Spaniel, and it's just, it's the bridge capital that causes social capital to happen. And so it can really be an environmental benefit to have dogs around. It's better for your city to have dogs around so that your people are interacting more because they, like I said earlier, they don't care if you're black or white or gay or straight or Jewish or Catholic or whatever. They just don't care. So it's the ultimate lubricant. It's the ultimate icebreaker.
Absolutely.
To meet other people.
Yep. Two people walk down the street and they don't even look at each other. But if it's two dog people walking down the street, it's, hey, how you going? And it's just stop and the dog's introduced and you start talking and it's just like, okay, what else does that?
Yeah. And, right now, as the world is right now, there's no better time for everybody to get a dog. Please go out and adopt a dog from a shelter right now because we need it. We need that stress relief and we need, it's unconditional, we need that unconditional love sometimes.
Absolutely. So that's leading into, do you want to tell people what you actually do and how that came about?
Sure. So I am the senior manager of adoption initiatives with PetSmart Charities. PetSmart Charities is a nonprofit that gives money to animal shelters, animal rescues on one side, sort of the human-animal bond, creating families and bringing people and pets together. And then we also give grants towards, we call it working our way up the leash. So some of those human-animal bond issues, like keeping the pet in the family. So food insecurity issues, access to veterinary care, things that might make a person give a pet up to a shelter. We're trying to address those areas and put funding into areas that would keep that from happening. Because as we talked about earlier, that human-animal bond is so strong, but society hasn't, completely caught up to low-income or no-income people owning pets. And there's lots of what we call vet deserts, areas where there's just no ability to get even preventative care, much less emergency care. And and as everyone of every income level loves their pet, and they love them as much as you love them. So they want that care, and it's just not accessible. So we look for areas that we can help solve that. We're looking for ways that we can use our funding and our grants to help reduce that food insecurity and get dog food and cat food into human food banks as well, so that people that own pets that are also food insecure can get their pets food as well. And so I've been doing that for about the last 6 years. I oversee the adoption side. So there are about 1,500 plus PetSmart stores, and we have about 3,000 plus partners that go into those stores and do adoptions. And so I oversee a team of 4 that gives grants to those groups to go into the stores, to do adoptions, to put those pets in homes. About 2 years ago, before the pandemic, we placed about 669,000 pets in 1 year.
Wow.
Through PetSmart stores. So the pandemic sort of slowed that down a little bit. Last year, we were about just over 400,000. But still, these are numbers that are, your average animal shelter adopts out, 5,000, 6,000 animals maybe here in the States. We're 600,000 is no small number that we're helping out. So it's really a great organization, and really proud to work there, because my previous 25 years before that was running animal shelters. So, I was one asking for money to help do what I do. And now I'm on the other side where we're giving money away. So it's a little more fun. But the shelter work was amazing too. I started when I was 20 years old. I was a junior in college, got my first dog on my own as an adult, and started working at the shelter that I got my dog from. And that's all I've done since 1990 until now. I worked in shelters and then went on to PetSmart Charities. Done field work. I've done a lot of impounds where we would go into puppy mills and take 200 or 300 dogs in horrible conditions, horse rescues and hoarders, people that just live in really bad conditions and very, sad mental disorders sometimes that go on with that. So I've seen a lot of different aspects of the animal welfare world, and animals in all kinds of conditions, from the worst to where Luke is today. And so it's been an interesting career, and this role has been able to take me all over the United States and Canada. Haven't much traveled into Europe or Australia yet, but very anxious to, and also to learn what's going on in this space in those areas, because I think there's things we're doing that Europe and Australia can do, and I think there's probably things you're doing that maybe we could learn from. And the internet really has exploded our industry. Pre-internet, the shelter euthanasia was through the roof, and people there was no way to share best practices and to communicate with each other. And so we've done a good job in the States of really sharing best practices and moving animals from areas of, overpopulation to areas of high demand. But really haven't tapped in there, at least on the local level, to see what internationally is going on. So always curious when I meet folks to say, what's going on in your backyard or in your state or country. Mm-hmm. Because the mentality of the people in those areas is so different, even regionally around the States. How people see pets. Is it a companion or a commodity? And in some areas it's a working dog, it's a hunting dog, or it's got a job. And in other areas it's a companion, it sleeps on the bed and it, drinks from the golden chalice. So, anyway, it's interesting that the field has really, it's about 30 years now of working with pets, and, you get in it for the animals and you stay for the people. There's some amazing people in this field, and really compassionate and really passionate people that do great things for all kinds of animals. I'm mainly small animals, so it's dogs, cats, gerbils, guinea pigs, ferrets, small mammals. Mm-hmm. But I've met a lot of equine people, a lot of livestock. Potbelly pigs were very popular for a while, so there's a lot of pig rescues around here, around the States. It's been an interesting career, and
that sounds it. Yes.
Yeah.
So, if people did want to contribute or find out more about it, where should they look?
PetSmartCharities.org is the United States website. PetSmartCharities.ca is the Canada website. Of course, it's accessible anywhere, all over the globe, but that's where you would learn about our grants and our the things we've spent our money on. We do only grant to the United States and Canada, so would love your listeners can see some of the success stories, and maybe there's something in there that can be replicated. And I would always my hope that we learn from each other. And there's programs on there. If anyone that listens is interested in anything we're doing, they can reach out. My email address is on the website, because I'd love to talk internationally and see, is there anything we can learn from each other? Is there stuff that we can do here to increase adoptions or do better than we're doing today?
Absolutely. I'm all about people just sharing in intelligence and making the whole world of dogs a better place.
Yeah, absolutely.
Steve, it has been a thoroughly enjoyable conversation and loved hearing all about Luke. I think you guys have got a long, long time ahead of you to have a wonderful life. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Well, thanks for having me, Robert. I enjoyed it.
Thank you very much for listening. I hope that you enjoyed the show. Thank you to our new listeners in Montreal, Canada, and Singapore City in Singapore. Like them, I hope that you would like, share, subscribe, and or leave a review on whatever platform you are listening to this on. But I would really appreciate it if you just simply told a friend how awesome dogs are and how awesome the dogs are on this podcast. Until next week, stay safe and remember, your dog is family.